Darphius, Curtis, Pookie Bear. This is theoretical bullshit. I refer to you as Pookie Bear because I feel that Darphius and Curtis are both very strong-willed sounding names, and I wanted to throw something into the mix that was a little more inviting, and I feel that Pookie Bear fits the bill. So I hope that's okay with you, Pookie Bear. Okay, so let's get down to business. This is a video response to your Euthifero video. You got a lot of stuff circulating right now. It's on my list. The intelligence, courage, and morality. I just watched your 3-piece response to my John Doe stuff, and hopefully I'm gonna get to get on that soon. But I watched this video, the Euthyphro dilemma. I learned something from you because I've made this exact argument and never knew it had a name and never knew anybody had come up with it before me. Not that I assumed somebody had, but I didn't know that, I didn't know specifically what it was called or who said it. So, thank you for the lesson. But essentially, the dilemma is as follows. Is it good because God commands it, or does God command it because it's good? If it's good just because God commands it, then good and bad and things like that are meaningless. All it means is that God said to do it, and you're following instructions, not behaving morally. The second half of the dilemma is that if God says it because it's good, then that means that standards of good and right and wrong and evil and such exist independently of God, and therefore we don't need God as a source for moral behavior. So anyway, that's the argument for anybody who's watching and needs to catch up. But Curtis, here was this is what I got from your argument, your response to the dilemma, and I'm just going to try to summarize just so I feel like I get what you're saying. Basically, you said that good tends to harmony and evil to disharmony. God desires for us to be harmonious with one another, and so he insists that we do good. Harmony is different from tolerance. Tolerance still allows for disharmony because it can harbor indifference, and indifference leads to disharmony when a lack of concern for another can lead to harm. As such, harmony is seen to be love. Therefore, love is an acceptable substitute for good, and hate, obviously, an acceptable substitute for evil. God is equivalent to love, and therefore God is equivalent to harmony. The Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit have always loved one another, and thus have always existed harmoniously. Sin equals evil. Evil is that which tends to disharmony, therefore sin is that which tends to disharmony. Everything God commands is therefore consistent with love. And in conclusion, it is loving because God commands it, and God commands it because it is loving, both at the same time and in the same respect. Okay, just to get down to business here, a lot of the problems that I have with this argument, with your argument, which, by the way, if you wrote this yourself, it was very eloquent, very impressive. A lot of the problems that I have with it are theoretical. They have to do with your word usage and the types of conclusions that you come to in theory. But most of the problems I have with this argument stem from the fact that, yes, by necessity, it's a language and semantics and definition argument. It's centered around that. That's what it's about, which is fine. I do that all the time. God, time, and existence, and intelligence, courage, and morality. That's all. But you can't leave it at that. You can't leave it out there in that theoretical realm and not apply it. You have to be able to test the validity of the argument by applying each one of its premises to our circumstances, to the real world, and see if it checks out. If it does, great, your argument works. If not, you got to reformulate your argument. Now, I know it's not set in stone. The things that you said, it wasn't a logical syllogism, and so I'm sure you left yourself some breathing room, I'm sure. But I am going to tackle what you said on face value, exactly the words you used, and if you need to correct me later, that's cool. You said that good tends to harmony and evil to disharmony. You didn't say that good was synonymous with harmony. That's our first problem. And don't get me wrong, I agree with you on that, but it's going to be a problem for your argument later on. You're obviously separating them. You're saying that they aren't the same thing, but that they're two different things with a causal relationship between them most of the time. That which is good tends to harmony, which means that that which is good is not necessarily harmonious. It just has a tendency toward it. And that wouldn't be a big deal, except for the fact that the crux of your argument is to put the dilemma in different words. That's the whole point. That's what your argument is. You're like, let's look at it this way. Let's look at it in these terms. But as you presented it, harmony isn't another word for good. It's another thing altogether. So later on in the argument, when you make the connection between harmony and the Trinity and love and all that, and you conclude that it's loving because God commands it, and God commands it because it's loving, well, you're not answering the original question. You're not answering the question about goodness, since goodness isn't synonymous with love. So essentially, you're answering a different dilemma. Moving on from that, later on you say that harmony is seen to be love, and therefore love is an acceptable substitute for good, which obviously means that if you want to do good, love will do the trick. But it does not mean that good cannot be done independently of love. I'll say that again. It does not mean that good cannot be done independently of love. Now, I don't know if you were trying to establish that, that it does mean that, but if you were, you didn't. You went on to say that this is what my biggest problem was. You went on to say that the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit have always loved one another, and thus have always existed harmoniously. Now, what that statement establishes is that love necessitates harmony. Now you're playing a semantics game. And the reason I say this is because when you take a statement like that, love necessitates harmony, or love is harmony, and you apply that to the real world, it doesn't work. It only works in theory. It only works in definition, in language, not in real world application. Let's take the issue of drug addiction. Okay, have you ever seen Basketball Diaries? Leonardo DiCaprio, Mark Wahlberg. He plays it's based on a true story. He plays I think it was heroin, but he's really fucked up on drugs, and he's, his life is going to shit, and his mom was sort of she's kind of enabling him throughout the entire film. But the climax of the film is this scene, and it's really well done. But Leonardo DiCaprio is trying to get back into his mom's house because he's homeless and he's out of money, and people are out to get him, and his addiction has really overcome him, and his mom doesn't let him in. She won't let him in. She won't talk to him. She won't look at him. She keeps the door locked, and he's crying and screaming, and he's cursing at her, and he's yelling, and he's pissed off, and his whole world is crumbling down, but she will not enable him anymore. And at that point in the film, he turns his life around after that, because he was allowed, his mother let him hit rock bottom. Anyway, I use that movie as an example because I like the message of that movie, and I like that movie. But the point is, that's not harmony. That scene, everything that's going on there, that certainly is not harmony. But it is love. It is absolutely loving. And as you said, love is an acceptable substitute for good. So for all intents and purposes, it was an act of goodness, that scene in that movie. Or that scenario, which I'm sure happens all the time in real life. It was an act of goodness, but it was not harmonious. And in fact, this is a perfect example of good not tending toward harmony. Unless, there's always an unless. Unless you take it upon yourself to change the meaning of harmony and or love to fit your conclusion. For example, let's say you responded to this problem by asserting, Scott, harmony isn't about people getting along or agreeing with one another or accepting one another. Harmony is about love and being godlike. So as you can see, Scott, the scenario you gave doesn't pose a problem for me in my argument at all. Well, okay, let's imagine that you said that. And I don't know if that is something you'd say or not, but that's something I can imagine you maybe rebutting with. Aside from the fact that if you said that, you would be making up a completely different definition for harmony than what we already know it to be. Here's the interesting thing about an answer like that. As you said in your video, love and God are synonymous, right? So if good is that which tends toward harmony, and harmony, with its new definition, is really nothing more than love or godliness, then good is simply that which tends toward God. You see how that works? Which really actually answers the question, answers the Euthyphro dilemma. Did God command it because it's good, or is it merely good because God commanded it? Well, good is that which tends toward God. It's good because God commanded it. Unless you maintain that good is more than and greater than simply that which tends toward God, in which case it's the other way around. God is commanding it because it's good.